Another broadcast day on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, a private not-for-profit organization. As always, please feel free to contact us with your comments, suggestions, and any questions you may have. And please stay with us. Reading the Buffalo News is coming up next.
The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a door, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers, and for more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Tuesday, February 3rd. Your readers today are Lita
and Nick.
And let's start with the weather. I'm pretty sure you know. Cold, cloudy, flurries. Only a few flurries during the morning, otherwise mostly cloudy today. High 26, mostly cloudy tonight. Low 12. Mostly cloudy tomorrow. High 22. Thursday, cold with intervals of clouds and sun. Snow and deteriorating travel conditions at night. A high of 20. Now we're looking at the snow derby. Buffalo is on top with 72.5 inches, and that is double the amount of Chicago. Although, here's some positive news. Syracuse has a lot more than us at 112.4 inches. So take heart in that, Buffalonians. It is already February. Nick?
So we're going to start with our lead story today. This Jamal puts the house on Nottingham up for sale for $2.5 million. Nearly 6 years ago, developer Douglas Jamal bought a mansion on Nottingham Terrace in Buffalo, demonstrating what he said was his commitment to the city. Now Jamal is selling his Buffalo house. Jamal has put his 5-bedroom mansion on Nottingham Terrace in Buffalo up for sale for $2.5 million. The move is another indication that Jamal is cutting back his investment in Western New York because of frustration with the rising cost of development projects, and what he feels is a lack of political support locally. When I bought the house, I planned to move to Buffalo and establish myself. I don't at the present time. I thought we would function as a cohesive city. I don't believe that's happening at the present time, nor do I see any changes in sight. Jamal, who had purchased the 7,600 square foot house at 135 Nottingham under the name of his son Norman, listed the 1.04 acre property 2 days ago with Howard Hanna Real Estate Services agent Karen Baker Levin. It has already garnered more than 9,000 views on Zillow alone. The list price is more than $1 million higher than the $1.425 million that Jamal paid in April of 2020, just as the COVID pandemic was hammering Western New York and the entire nation. He purchased it from Jed Hunter of Shaker Heights, Ohio, at a time when the developer was busy establishing himself here. The mansion is filled with old-world charm and the finest fixtures and finishes available today, according to the listing. That includes 6 full bathrooms, an elegant foyer, a spectacular staircase, a living room and floral dining room, a den and morning room, a kitchen with custom cabinetry, a breakfast bar and high-end appliances, and a solarium that opens to an outdoor space with heated patios, an outdoor kitchen, and a pool. Jamal said he still spends 2 days a week in Buffalo. I don't need anything that big. I'll stay in one of my units. I have plenty of them. Jamal bought the house when he was in the midst of what would be a $200 million redevelopment of the 38-story Seneca One Tower, the city's tallest building, with more than 1 million square feet of space. He transformed it into a mixed-use hub with apartments, real estate, retail space, a brew pub, and a more office space anchored by M&T Bank's corporate new technology hub. It now also houses Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield of West New York, and other businesses. He also converted the former Buffalo Police headquarters on Franklin Street into the police apartments, and then purchased Boulevard Mall in Amherst with plans to remake it into a town center destination. He soon bought the Statler from real estate developer Mark Croce, as well as the Hyatt Regency Buffalo, with major plans to redevelop the Statler into 500 apartments and 220 hotel rooms, while also upgrading the Hyatt. And he unveiled grand plans to buy and redevelop the Mohawk Ramp, Simon Electric Properties, a parking lot surrounded by a highway loop, and the cluster of buildings in Elmwood Avenue, among others. Building the latter at Elmwood and Bidwell Parkway is progressing and should be finished by June. The Statler is the linchpin for redevelopment downtown. Everything else means nothing. That's what's going to wake up downtown again, just like Seneca 1 did. Jamal was heavily focused on Buffalo, where he was spending 2 days a week for the previous few years and needed a place to stay. But he also wanted to demonstrate his commitment to Buffalo at a time when skeptical Buffalonians still had doubts about his ability to follow through on his ambitious plans. I went there to try to help the city and that community. That was my motivation period. I know how to bring it back. That's why I bought everything that I bought to achieve that, and then everybody wins. He had previously purchased a smaller 4-bedroom English Tudor style mansion on Nottingham in 2017 for $949,000 with 4,464 square feet of space. Small. But opted to sell that and buy an even bigger home on the same street. Since then, though, conditions have turned against him and against developers in general. Soaring costs of construction materials and labor, combined with doubling interest rates and more stringent lending standards by banks, have made it much harder for developers to pursue projects, especially in the markets such as Western New York, where profit margins are already slim because rental rates are still relatively low. Like most developers, Jamal put the majority of his projects on hold, hoping conditions would improve.
And the chemical company in Buffalo, which helped block a pro soccer stadium next door, is now buying the site. The chemical manufacturing plant that made sure a new professional soccer stadium did not come next door to its Lee Street facility is now squashing any hope of similar development on that property. PVS Chemical Solutions has spent $13.5 million to purchase Buffalo Color Park, including the former Medaille Sports Complex from Buffalo developer and businessman John Williams, who has hoped to redevelop what was once an industrial park in the City Valleys neighborhood. The deal with Williams South Buffalo Development Company closed on the 22nd of January. The sale encompasses 4 properties between Lee and Elk Streets, vacant industrial parcels at 5 Babcock Street and 18 Maurice Street, and athletic fields at 85 Lee Street and 427 Elk Street. That effectively means the chemical company that had been opposing the sports facility as its neighbor has come out on top in its stalemate with Williams. PVS's Chemicals now owns the property and can demolish it or at least prevent it from ever being used for recreation again. Buffalo Pro Soccer planned to bring a United Soccer League Championship club to a $10 million stadium proposed at the former Medaille Fields, but the deal fell through last summer after opposition from PVS Chemicals drew attention to earlier complaints about fumes and odors there. A spokesperson for the company did not immediately respond to a request for comment. PVS Chemicals produces sulfuric acid used in making semiconductors at its 55 Lee Street facility. It teamed up with United Steelworkers to protest the project and also hired a public relations and lobbying firm to underscore its opposition. The efforts by PVS Chemicals would have likely slowed any approvals needed for the stadium site. The plan being scrapped essentially ends hopes for reuse of the site. It was part of an ongoing effort by PVS Chemicals to make sure recreational activities did not go on next to the plant. Heavy industrial companies like PVS are zoned to operate away from gathering places like soccer fields to reduce risk and exposure to citizens, David Nicholson, president and CEO of PVS, said last year. Our sulfur product plants can smell like sulfur, which, while not harmful, might be offensive and alarming to the average soccer fan. Williams, the founder of battery technology company Verity Parente, and real estate firm South Buffalo Development, originally purchased the 21-acre brownfield site in a 2009 tax foreclosure auction. He reportedly contributed $3.5 million to Honeywell's $20 million cleanup of the property and received $6.6 million in brownfield tax credits from the state. he had hoped to put in the elements needed to create an entertainment district there. Buffalo Pro Soccer initially decided last year to build the stadium on the baseball and softball fields that were no longer in use by Medaille after the university closed in 2023. The team believed the stadium could become a key element in what was described as an emerging entertainment district in Buffalo's Valley neighborhood, just a mile from Larkinville and 2 miles from downtown. But critics from the beginning questioned whether it would be a good fit for the area. The site, which has housed chemical plants for decades, has been remediated with new development in mind, but has still been marred over the years with complaints of foul odors and fumes overhead. PVS's Chemicals is just south of the sports complex and has been on the site for 45 years. When Medaille was playing at the site, PVS Chemicals was emitting fumes that some athletes and spectators complained caused eye and respiratory irritation, as well as brought out foul odor. The State Department of Environmental Conservation, acting on the complaints about odors, cited PVS Chemicals 3 times, fined it $600,000 to force compliance, and in 2021 ordered the plant to shut down temporarily because of excess emissions until it could prove it was safe. A federal judge lifted an injunction a month later that had ordered the plant to limit its sulfur dioxide emissions.
And record highs, record lows mark January full of wild weather in Western New York. The numbers are in. January was a weird month full of extremes for Western New York weather. Some communities saw more than double their average amount of snow for the first month of the year. Temperatures reached new lows, but also new highs. And then there was the almost constant snowfall, interrupted briefly by rain. It was only as far back as January 9th when the mercury soared to 61 degrees, hitting a new high temperature record for that day, according to National Weather Service data. That's about 22 degrees above normal for that day. It didn't last. Starting on January 23rd, the deep freeze set in. A new daily low temperature record was set on January 24th of minus 4 degrees. National Weather Service data shows. That was about 22 degrees below the normal for that day. And wind chills made it feel even colder than that record-setting low. When the wind was blowing, air temperatures felt like minus 15 to minus 25 degrees on January 23rd. It's not unusual for Western New York to see big fluctuations in temperature throughout the month, said Jim Mitchell, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service station in Buffalo. Thank the jet stream or a narrow band of wind in the atmosphere for that, Mitchell said. As jet streams circulate air around the globe, they wobble, sometimes bringing us warm wind from the south or cold air from the north. For the first half of the month, Buffalo was getting warmer air from the south. The pattern flipped in the middle of the month. So now we're getting the jet stream coming right out of the Arctic and diving right down into the southeastern U.S. Temperature differences weren't the only extreme weather event that happened this month. Western New Yorkers are used to snow, but preliminary data for the region shows some areas saw much more snow than they're used to. In January, Wales received about 76.8 inches of snowfall through January 29th. That set a new record for the town, which normally gets about 34.2 inches of snow every January, according to National Weather Service data. The next highest snowfall recorded there since consistent recording began in 1986 was 71 inches in 1999, the data shows. Often snowy Springville received more snow than usual. About 77 inches were recorded by the end of the month, besting its next highest mark of 67.8 inches in 2025. The village normally gets around 48.5 inches of snow in January, according to National Weather Service records that began in 2015. Northtowns did not escape this unscathed. Northtown normally gets around 21.8 inches of snow in January, with the most being 51.3 inches in 1999. Last month, the city saw 51.3 inches of snowfall, according to the National Weather Service data. At the Buffalo Airport, logs 36.6 inches of snow for the month, surpassing the norm of 23.4 inches in January, according to the National Weather Service. Lake Erie has been acting unusual this month due to frigid temperatures. The lake was almost 95% 5% frozen as of Friday, according to the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration's Coast Watch Great Lakes. That's far above the typical ice coverage for the period of 1973 through 2025, when max ice coverage was an average of 68%.
Wow.
The agency's data shows, and that much ice coverage typically didn't come until mid-February, according to the data. Reminder, you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time now is about 15 minutes after the hour.
And flipping over to the editorial section, what the polls show is a real head-scratcher. It was the Fox News poll of voters that a reporter asked the president about, the one that showed 59% saying that immigration and customs enforcement had gone too far. Hard to dismiss as fake news, but the president wasn't biting. He ignored the question and stared ahead. But he's not ignoring reality, at least not completely. He's changed horses. Whether he and his stormtroopers were willing to make more significant changes is what remains to be seen, both on the streets of Minneapolis and on Capitol Hill. But what concerns me almost as much is the other 41%, the 24% who think ICE is doing deportations just about right, and the 17% who'd like to see ICE be more aggressive. If you look at just Republicans, 52% think ICE is either doing just fine or should be more aggressive. Who are these people, and what do they want ICE to do? Round up more people, barge into homes, separate families, arrest more people who have never committed any crime. We should all shudder to think what Greg Bovino had in mind for his next act. Is that what the base of the Republican Party really wants? Does President Trump have it in him to confront them and tell them why that is wrong? And if not now, when? The deaths of 2 innocent white citizens made the continued attempt to occupy Minneapolis untenable. Maybe it was inevitable that something like that would happen. Twice. Maybe not. Had those agents not misfired, would the Trump administration ever have changed its tactics? Would the 41% supporting ICE be a majority right now? What is at stake on the streets of Minneapolis and in other neighborhoods that Bovino and his stormtroopers have occupied is not only the freedom of Hispanic Americans, but the rule of law. These troopers, anointed by J.D. Vance and his boss with a level of absolute immunity that the courts do not recognize, feel empowered to ignore the usual constraints on the use of force and the scope of detention. And they have been getting away with it, detaining people without probable cause, throwing tear gas at peaceful protesters. And, as the federal district court in Minnesota pointed out, repeatedly ignoring court orders. This is another insurrection Donald Trump has incited, and now it should be up to him to end it. But remember, his base doesn't want him to. His Justice Department flouts the rule of law. He flip-flops all over the place, of course, as we saw on Greenland and on Terrace, but he's been riding the anti-immigrant bandwagon for a long time, and his party is riddled with racism and haters of its own, who he has not chosen to take on. So will he start now? Or will he just continue on his affordability tour? Stay tuned. Tom Hauman is a better face on things than Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski, but the question is far beyond who the face of this is. Is it Donald Trump? Like it or not, this is all being done at his instance. He can take it down or not. He can change procedures, or Congress can force it. Eventually, hopefully, the courts will. The 41% aren't just wrong, politically speaking. They want ICE to be above the law, as they've been acting, and they aren't. That dog don't hunt, and the sooner Trump stops listening to the 41% and ignoring the rule of law, the better.
And we move to our main editorial from the Buffalo News editorial staff. Make it work. The Erie Basin Marina needs immediate attention to be ready for the coming season. Bickering won't get it done. As reported by the News' Justin Sundell, the marina issue is top of mind for City Hall leadership. A new owner-operator for the marina and adjacent restaurant properties must be finalized in time to serve boaters and waterfront visitors this summer. Yes, summer seems far away, but given the long stretch of sub-freezing temperatures we've been experiencing, but this too shall pass. When summer arrives, Buffalo will need a marina that can join Canalside as a vibrant downtown waterfront attraction. To delay only transitioning to new management involves several snags, including questions from Comptroller Barbara Williams' office, continuing concerns from some Common Council members, and the threat of a lawsuit from a previous tenant of the restaurant space. Fillmore District Council member Mitchell Nowakowski, whose district includes the marina, believes that the city-owned amenities will be open in time for boaters and patrons to enjoy. Nowakowski and city officials have been behind the push for a new operator. Following the expiration of the contract with the former operator Smith Boys, which ended just before the 2024 boating season. Smith Boys has continued on one-year contracts for the past 2 years, even though Nowakowski expressed interest in getting a new contractor last year. The councilman's efforts came after a series of audits that showed that the company had paid the city less than $1,000 for over an 8-year period. They included an audit and complaints from boaters. Former Mayor Christopher Scanlon's administration released a request for qualifications in November seeking a new operator for the marina and both the adjacent restaurant spaces that formerly hosted William K's, The Hatch, and Sully's. There was progress. In late December, the city selected John Nash to be the new operator. Nash is a former Smith Boys employee responsible for day-to-day operations at the marina for the company. He is partnering with Jason Davidson, who run the restaurant operations. Davidson has been running the Liberty Hound at Canalside for more than 10 years and the Terrace at Delaware Park for almost as long. Both are city-owned properties. Mayor Sean Ryan's administration seems satisfied with the outcome, but is maintaining the operator selected through the RFQ process and is keeping the basic framework of the agreements, although adjusting some of the terms. And it's welcoming news that, according to Deputy Mayor Benjamin Swankamp, the city will increase the frequency of audits from biannual to an annual basis. It is also increasing the percentage of revenues paid to the city in future years. Still, the Comptroller's office has a point about potential for further lack of oversight on the marina contracts. The office discovered issues with reporting and compliance to the contract with the former operators. There must be improved oversight so the city receives fair rent, certainly much more than the nominal fee covering several years. Meanwhile, there is another controversy brewing. Yvette Applewhite and Evelyn's Kitchen were operating out of the William K space when the contract with former restaurant operator Angelo Cano Jr. was notified last year. Applewhite applied to the request for proposal process but was not selected. She has accused the city in the document she shared with the news and at a recent meeting of bid steering and the selected operators. And she said that the city illegally evicted her from the space that she was subleasing from Cano. City officials denied both accusations, noting that the sublease was unarmed. Whatever the outcome, marina finances must be stabilized and its amenities improved. This is a premier waterfront destination that is not living fully up to its potential. And we're going to cover real quick our two editorial cartoons. Our first one is from Adam Zeiglis of the Buffalo News. But there's two panels. On the top it says, has a question, which did the DOJ arrest? One is Don Lemon with his microphone, and the microphone is his First Amendment. And the other is two Border Patrol agents masked firing their guns. And the check mark is on the box that says Lemon. And our other editorial, or syndicated column editorial, is from Tom Stieglich. It is a cartoon of we're in Punxsutawney, Pennsylvania, and they've pulled Phil out. And Phil is Phil's kind of an icicle right now. As one of his handlers goes, "Does this mean 6 more weeks of winter?"
Okay. In another voice, it was submitted by Mary Slosnek as a principal of OLV Elementary School in Lackawanna. OLV Elementary has a different kind of mission. For decades, local Catholic schools have consistently helped shape the hearts, minds, and futures of young people across Western New York. The core focus has remained the same, developing students not only academically, but also morally, spiritually, and socially. When families are choosing schools based on more than just test scores or local rankings, Catholic education offers something deeper: the formation of the whole person. A Catholic education provides young people with a foundation rooted in academic excellence, faith, values, and service. In our schools, students are encouraged to grow intellectually while learning compassion, responsibility, integrity, and respect for others. These values cannot be taught through textbooks or laptops alone. They must be lived daily. OLV Elementary School is uniquely tied to the enduring legacy of Father Nelson Baker, whose life of service continues to inspire generations. Father Baker believed deeply in caring for the whole child, and that philosophy remains at the heart of the school today. As the humble priest's legacy continues to grow, so do the students of OLV Elementary. Year after year, they are challenged academically, taught to serve others, and encouraged to contribute to the common good. Academically, OLV Elementary offers a first-rate educational experience in a focused learning environment. Personalized instruction and small class sizes allow teachers to truly know their students in nurturing individual strengths. This supportive atmosphere builds confidence, curiosity, and a lifelong love of learning. It also helps form the next generation of Catholic leaders, young people who think critically, act ethically, and lead with compassion. OLV Elementary also recognizes the importance of creativity and self-expression. The school's choir and music departments give students opportunities to discover their talents, build confidence, and experience the joy of creating something beautiful together. The school embraces innovation through its technology, offering using tools such as iPads and 3D printers. OLV prepares students for a rapidly changing world. Athletics, clubs, and services opportunities further enrich the student experience, teaching teamwork, perseverance, and the value of giving back. And shooting over to the My View column, that historic game in Lake Placid. In February 1980, the U.S. hosts the Winter Olympics at Lake Placid in the Adirondack region of New York. As Buffalo residents, we thought that this was our big chance to see Olympics, as they would never be held closer to home. Luckily, Gina, my wife, happened to notice an ad in the personal columns of the Buffalo News offering 4 tickets to the closing ceremonies and the gold medal hockey game on Sunday, February 24th. We purchased the tickets, which would be picked up at the ticket booth at Lake Placid. Next, we got a hotel reservation in Watertown, the closest available lodging, in which we could spend Saturday night and depart early Sunday for Lake Placid. Our plan was to drive back to the hotel that same day, sleep, and return to Buffalo the next day. By this time, everyone at the Olympic venue and the people throughout the nation were ecstatic that the U.S. had defeated the team from the Soviet Union. The game came to be known as the Miracle on Ice and considered by many the hockey game of the century. In round-robin play to determine the order of the medal winners, the U.S. team would play Finland. The game would see. Arriving in Lake Placid, we parked outside the town and were ferried into the Olympic area by a yellow school bus. Lo and behold, the tickets were sitting on the shelf in the booth, the only tickets left. Since these were purchased well in advance of the games, we had no idea who would be playing at 11 a.m. That Sunday morning, the closing day of the games. We were so excited and relieved that the tickets were still there, since tickets for the game were being resold for enormous amounts of money, and did not even consider that option. The venue was packed at capacity, 8,500 people. The atmosphere was electric due to the buzz created by the Miracle on Ice. Our team was no longer seen as amateurs. The tension in the arena built to a crescendo and erupted in mass hysteria as the clock counted down to 0. The U.S. defeated Finland 4-2 in a come-from-behind win, scoring 3 goals in the final period to claim the gold medal. Gina's father, an industrial photographer, was ecstatic to be taking photos of the U.S. team and flag raised on the ice with all the sports photographers from around the globe. He sold a number of these images over the years, but regrettably, our copy has vanished. The town was just jubilant, and what a thrilling conclusion of the 1980 Winter Olympics. After the game, we had something to eat, and I became violently ill with a GI problem, food or nerves, I do not know. Luckily, we found a room in town at the Holiday Inn. I went to bed with Gina, and her parents went to the closing ceremony at the high school gym. I could hear the fireworks from my hotel bed, but certainly could not enjoy them. It was a weekend that we all finally remembered as one of the high points of our life. And you are listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 30 minutes past the hour.
And we move to one of our syndicated columns. If Trump wants to remove the worst, start with Miller. This is written by Gustavo Arellano, apologies if I'm mispronouncing his name, from the LA Times. President Trump and his supporters like to think that their MAGA movement is an unstoppable locomotive. After Border Patrol agents brutally beat, shot, and killed Alex Preddy last month in Minneapolis, we're seeing the Trump train derail in a way it never has. Already, Border Patrol Commander at Large Gregory Bovino seems to have been relieved of his post. Republicans are publicly calling for the removal of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, and privately freaking out that her Minnesota mess will doom their chances of holding Congress in the midterms. Trump has promised a de-escalation of immigration enforcement actions and is doing everything possible to stem nationwide outrage over his deportation machine. It means nothing if Stephen Miller remains in the White House. The deaths of Preddy and Renee Good weeks earlier, and more people on the streets and in detention facilities, are the logical outcome of what happens when Miller is in charge of anything. When he is the beating heart of one of the ugliest, most xenophobic, and violent periods of immigration enforcement this country has seen. Like the most treacherous toadies from literature, Iago, Wormtongue, Tywin Lannister, Miller managed to shove aside rivals to latch onto his master's ear and guide him toward more evil. After he served during Trump's first administration, the Santa Monica residents' lifelong bête noirs, liberals, DEI, immigration, but especially Latinos, have become the focus of Trump's second term at the expense of issues all Americans care about, like the economy and health care, and as Minneapolis snarkily showed, human lives. Trump was never an angel, but at least his need for love sometimes tempered his worst instincts. He has expressed sympathy for people who came to this country without papers as kids. It even called off raids against farmers, hotels, and restaurants for a few days last summer before Miller intervened. The administration has since further devolved into an extension of his worldview. It was Miller who berated ICE field heads in May for not nabbing enough undocumented immigrants and demanded field agents swarm Home Depots and 7-Elevens, sparking an era of indiscriminate raids that continues. Who pushed Trump to also seek an end to illegal migration and birthright citizenship? Who has championed the neo-Nazi concept known as remigration, which argues for kicking out people whose ancestors came over only a few generations ago and make the United States look more like an episode of Little House on the Prairie, except with a lot more Nellie Olsons? Miller saw the same videos of Preddy's death that everyone else did, a 37-year-old man filming Border Patrol agents with a cell phone, standing between them and a woman whom an agent shoved to the ground, trying to protect her as the two were maced. Miller, like the rest of us, had to see Preddy get gang tackled before one of them took his legally registered handgun and two of them shot him dead. Except Miller came to the conclusion that Preddy was an assassin and terrorist. Even as GOP allies were telling Trump he was losing Americans on the issue, and supporters like the NRA pushed back against the idea that Preddy was asking for his death by carrying a firearm, Miller doubled down. He has always taken the American people for brainless, heartless chumps, lost in a swamp of nostalgia, who believe whatever Trump world tells them to. But seeing paramilitary squads kill their fellow U.S. citizens while the economy stalls and the administration treats pillars of our democracy such as the Second Amendment and judicial process as inconveniences has revolted legions of Americans. Liberal and conservative polls show the president's support is cratering across all groups because of ISIS's excesses, but also especially with independents and Latinos. two constituencies crucial to his 2024 triumph and the future of MAGA. The crisis is such that Trump is now playing nice. He told Fox News that he and two fierce critics, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, have talked and now are on the similar wavelength. Meanwhile, immigration czar Tom Homan, who's taken over for Noam and Bovino in Minnesota, and most likely elsewhere, posted on social media that his meetings with the two were a productive starting point. This past week, Miller told CNN, we are evaluating why the Border Patrol team may not have been following proper protocol in Minnesota. Oh sure, Stephen Miller, noted aficionado of proper protocols when it comes to begging brown-skinned immigrants or anyone who happens to be in the way. Whatever changes occur, if any, will mean nada if Miller remains. At long last, Trump has to realize that overlying on one sad, twisted man to set so much policy and tone will end in failure and humiliation, and more likely violence. Mayor Miller's biggest miscalculation was thinking opponents will be frightened into submission and silence with his deportation blitzkrieg and ordinary Americans would join in. Instead, more people are rising up to film La Migra and speak out against their excesses. Preddy was one of them. Friends told the Daily Beast he only joined anti-his protests after the killing of Good shocked him into action. It would be the grandest of ironies if the death of white American citizens standing up for their undocumented neighbors was what torpedoed the career of a xenophobe. It would also be a godsend. Trump, your bald-headed lackey, has done nothing to make America great again. Let America start to heal from Miller's metastatic influence and deport him from the White House for good. Again, this was by Gustavo Arellano from the Los Angeles Times.
And from Kathleen Parker, people in America now know what they are standing against. A proven antidote to political division is a common enemy. The greater the power organized against people, the stronger the bonds become among disparate groups. Think 9/11. Now turn your gaze to Minneapolis. Never did I imagine that the existential threat to America's democratic republic would be posed by our own government. I've always believed that a constitutional commitment to moral principles, especially the rule of law, meant we were protected from the fates of less blessed nations. America was the exceptional country. But we're not the same people we were as recently as 2016 when the norm-shattering Donald Trump came into power. He stepped into a role for him at a time when the future seemed up for grabs. His vision for the United States has hardened into something unrecognizable, while his methods have escalated into lawlessness. I'm reminded of the character Randall Flagg from Stephen King's 1978 novel, The Stand. Flagg was a sorcerer and cult leader who served chaos, darkness, destruction, and conflict to bring down civilization. King's work, which culminates in a showdown between good and evil, could be a metaphor for today's partisan hostility. The recent killings of 2 Minnesota citizens protesting the roughly 3,000-strong federal invasion and stormtrooper tactics make King seem hauntingly prescient and perhaps prescriptive. The Minneapolis chaos is likely politically retributive and perhaps tied to the midterms and 2028 election, both of which Trump probably wouldn't mind canceling. By creating chaos, this unrestrained president can justify imposing stricter controls, potentially leading to more military occupation across the country. That's one way to obstruct the nation's electoral system. The January 6th storming of the Capitol didn't quite do the trick. I'm convinced by the evidence, thanks to citizen cameras and my own eyes, that using lethal force against Renee Good and Alex Preddy was not justified. Jonathan Rauch, writing in The Atlantic, laid out a convincing case for calling Trump's policies fascism, discarding the word he previously used, patrimonialism, to describe him. Patrimonialism, he explained, is a governing style which fascism is ideological, aggressive, and at first revolutionary. Raj provided 18 examples of Trump-style fascism, including glorifying violence and a might is right worldview. Not using fascist now, he said, would be perverse. Read the article, then mentally scroll through what you've seen in Minneapolis. Masked armed men girded with bulletproof vests and other military effects, dragging people out of their homes into frigid streets, tossing women to the ground, detaining children, and shooting and killing civilians who are peacefully protesting. Although Trump has taken measures to mitigate the public outcry following Preddy's killing, they're not enough. He sidelined Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem for her mindless jabber that included calling Preddy a domestic terrorist for using a cell phone to film agents abusing a woman. Trump also swapped out his top gun in Minnesota, Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino, for border czar Tom Homan, who said he plans to draw down agents there. Some cold comfort, that is. ICE agents involved in the killing should be charged rather than merely suspended. Trump likes chaos, and his self-serving goals become more achievable as long as it lasts. This means ICE will continue its dangerous deployments with Trump's blessing, and journalists who try to expose the reality on the ground pay the price. On Thursday night and Friday morning, former CNN anchor Don Lemon and independent journalist Georgia Fort were arrested by federal agents in connection to their coverage in an anti-ICE protest at a church in St. Paul. Into this darkness, a slice of light pierces the gloom. The worm seems to be turning. Most Americans oppose what is happening, while other countries file formal protests and issue travel warnings to citizens considering a U.S. destination. Even some MAGA voters must loathe what they're seeing. Welcome to the light, friends. America's partisans and all of those trapped between have a common enemy and a unifying mission to stop the madness. It's time to take a stand. And that was from the Washington Post.
And we move now to our business section, how to make food shopping smarter. Walking into a grocery store with the goal of saving money and eating well can feel like an impossible balancing act. Prices fluctuate consistently. Sales signs compete for attention. Inflation has remained stubbornly high, and the other foods are often assumed to cost more, especially when shopping at premium retailers like Whole Foods compared to the more budget-friendly stores such as Aldi's or Walmart. And in busy schedules and decision fatigue, it's easy to default to convenience foods or overspend on impulse buys. But smart grocery shopping isn't about deprivation or perfection. It's instead about strategy. Planning ahead and knowing where real value lives in the grocery store. One of the most effective ways to lower your grocery bill starts before you ever step inside the store. Plan your meals ahead of time and make a list based on what you already have. Says Yassi Ansari, a registered dietitian and nutritionist and Los Angeles-based certified sports dietetics specialist. From there, stick as closely as possible to that list to avoid impulse purchases. Checking your home inventory first also helps prevent duplicate purchases and cuts down on food waste, which is one of the biggest hidden costs of grocery shopping. Buying foods without a plan often leads to unused produce or forgotten leftovers that end up in the trash. Doing a quick scan of weekly sales, clipping coupons ahead of time, and knowing what's in season can also shape smarter choices. Ansari notes that seasonal produce is often both cheaper and better tasting. Leslie Bonsi, a registered sports dietitian and founder of Active Eating Advice, recommends shoppers check store websites, apps, or newsletters for discounts and promotions ahead of time. Once inside the store, flexibility is key. Bonsi points out that less than perfect produce is often marked down and just as nutritious. Sometimes the produce that does not look as nice costs less, she says. But who cares how pretty it is? Protein choices matter too. Chicken with the skin on and boned in is typically cheaper than boneless, skinless cuts. One way to make more expensive items, like meat and seafood, more affordable is to buy them in bulk. Choose ingredients that stretch out across multiple meals and freeze leftovers to reduce waste, Ansari advises. The store brands are another major opportunity for savings as they are nutritionally equivalent to name brands, Bonsi explains. She also added that labels like organic, pasture-raised, or grass-fed aren't necessarily nutritionally superior for most shoppers, but they do come with a higher price tag. And linking AI layoffs is difficult to pin down. The one thing N. Lee Plum knows for sure about being laid off from Amazon is that it wasn't a failure to get on board with the company's artificial intelligence plans. Plum, his team's head of AI enablement, says he was so prolific in his uses of Amazon's new AI coding tool that the company flagged him as one of its top users. Many assumed Amazon's 16,000 corporate layoffs announced last week reflected CEO Andy Jassy's push to reduce our total corporate workforce as we get efficiency gains from using AI extensively across the company. But like other companies that have tied workforce changes to AI, including Expedia, Pinterest, and Dow last week, it can be hard for economists or individual employees like Plum to know if AI is the real reason behind the layoffs or if it's the message a company wants to tell Wall Street. AI has to drive a return on investment, said Plum, who worked at Amazon for 8 years. When you reduce headcount, you've demonstrated efficiency. You attract more capital. The share price goes up. So you could potentially have just been bloated in the first place, reduce headcount, contributed to AI. Now you've got a value story, he also said. Amazon said in an email statement that AI was not the reason behind the vast majority of these reductions. These changes are about continuing to strengthen our culture and teams by reducing layers, increasing ownership, and helping reduce bureaucracy to driven speed and ownership, it said. Plum is atypical for an Amazon worker in that he's also running what he describes as a long-shot bid for Congress in Texas, on a platform focused on stopping the tech industry's reliance on work visas to replace American workers with cheaper foreign labor. Whatever it was that cost Plum his job, his skepticism about AI-driven job replacement is one shared by many economists. We just don't know, said Karen Giltra, a professor of management at Cornell University's Business School. Not because AI isn't great, it's because it requires a lot of adjustment and most of the gains accrue to an individual employees rather than to the organization. People save time and they get their work done earlier. If an employer works faster because of AI, Girotra said it would take time to adjust the company's management structure in a way that would enable a smaller workforce. He's not convinced that's happening at Amazon, which he said is still scaling back from a glut of hiring during the COVID-19 pandemic. A report by Goldman Sachs said AI's overall impact on the labor market remains limited, though some effects might be felt in the specific occupations like marketing, graphic design, computers, customer service, and especially tech. Those are fields involving tasks that correlate with the strengths of the current crop of generative AI chatbots that can write emails and marketing pitches, produce synthetic images, answer questions, and help write code. The bank's Economic Research Division said it's in the most recent monthly AI adoption tracker. Since December, very few employees were affected by corporate layoffs attributed to AI, though the report was published on January 16th before Amazon, Dow, and Pinterest announced their layoffs.
And as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Paul Edward Barlow. Michael G. Fuda, Fuda, PhD. Anita B. Capron, Nee Futak. Diana Lee Mackin. Stanley Scheffler. Paul J. Slumowitz. John J., known as Jack Bucard. James J. Kurtz, known as Jim, JYM. And Mary C. Courier, known as Molly Nee Peterson. If you need any further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. Again, that's 716-821-5555.
And on a lighter note, we move over to our horoscopes, the Royal Stars, written by Georgia Nichols. A reminder, all these are for entertainment purposes only. They have no reliable basis of facts unless they sound really good to you, in which case, you do you, we don't judge. Happy birthday for Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. You're charming, adventurous, popular, and original. Your freedom is important to you. This is a year of service, perhaps service to a family. The stars show the kind of day you'll have. So 5 stars is dynamic, 4 stars is positive, 3 is average, 2 is so-so, and 1 is difficult. Aries, March 21st, April 19th, it's 2 stars. You might have to put your own consideration second to the needs of someone else today. Guard against being hypercritical. You're not being a martyr tonight, work. Taurus, April 20th to May 20th, 3 stars. Whew. It's a more fun-loving day. You feel the need to be yourself and do what you want. Tonight, play. Gemini, May 21st to June 20th, 3 stars. Home, family, and your private world are your focus today. You might have a connection with a family relative or friend. Tonight, relax at home. Cancer, June 21st to July 22nd. It's 3 stars. It's important that you find someone who will listen to you with understanding and interest. Today, you have a strong desire to express your ideas and opinions. Tonight, discussions. Leo, July 23rd to August 22nd, 2 stars. Cash flow, money, and money-making ideas are on your mind today. By nature, if you like to play it safe, you're not a real gambler. You like a sure thing. Tonight, protect your assets and belongings. Virgo, August 23rd to September 22nd, 3 stars. Today, the moon is in your sign, which will make you more emotional than usual. However, it will also give you an edge over all the other signs. Tonight, you're in charge. Libra, September 23rd to October 22nd, 3 stars. This is a playful, fun-loving time for you. Social occasions, sports events, fun activities with kids, and entertaining diversions are on your agenda. Tonight, enjoy privacy. Scorpio, October 23rd to November 21st, 3 stars. Despite your strong focus on home, family, and your private life, today a conversation with a friend, probably a female, will be important. Tonight, deal with groups. Sagittarius, November 22nd to December 21st, it's 3 stars. Today, the moon is high in your chart, which means people notice you more than usual. In fact, some people will know personal details about your private life. Tonight, be modest. Capricorn, December 22nd to January 19th, 3 stars. Do something different today. Because you're a bit restless, you want a change of scenery or a bit of adventure. Tonight, travel and explore. Aquarius, January 20th to February 18th. 2 stars. Today, discussions with others will probably go in your favor. Because with 5 planets in your sign, you will put a lot of yourself into whatever you have to say. Tonight, check your finances. And Pisces, February 19th to March 20th, 2 stars. Today, the moon is opposite your sign, which happens for 2.5 days every month. When this happens, it means you have to compromise a bit. Tonight, cooperate. A reminder, astrological forecasts have no reliable basis of fact unless they sound really good to you, in which case you do you.
And a poet who helped bring mural to life hopes it can be seen in public again. A mural created by a group of local Latino poets in the 1980s and put on display in a metro rail station was moved into storage a decade ago. Now, the last living poet of the 3 who created its text is hoping that the 30-foot-long wall of art can be repaired and once again put on public display. The piece, called the Latino Art Mural Project, celebrates Puerto Rican and Latino life through poetic vignettes reflecting themes of identity and culture, displaying on brightly colored enamel fused to copper tile. It means poetry is no longer hidden. It's hanging out with the people, said poet and activist Alberto O. Capas, who's 80 years old. The artwork was installed in 1985 in what was then called the Allen Hospital Metro Rail station at Main and Allen Streets, but when the station was rebuilt in the mid-2010s to make it part of the University at Buffalo's new Jacobs School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences, The Niagara Frontier Transportation Authority, which owns the piece, moved it during construction. It has been sitting in storage ever since in the NFTA's train yard, and it has suffered some damage, an NFTA spokesperson said. Kappas is now on a campaign to get the artwork reinstalled, if not in a metro rail station, then perhaps at his alma mater, the University at Buffalo. The fact that the other two poets on the project, Juan A. Gonzalez and Olga Carmen, have died makes the preservation and reinstallation of the work even more urgent, Kappas said. It's important because it has a historical value. It was an early milestone of Latino representation in Buffalo's public arts installations, Kappas said. To me, the NFTA Poetic Art Mural means visibility. The main thing is that the mural presence gives life to our community. The mural speaks for us. It provides a platform where we can have conversations with those that encounter the mural and talk about our culture and history and our right to be visible. The mural does that for us. Local artist Donna Iaviero and her late husband William Jobling, as well as the late Jorge Guitart, also collaborated on the project, creating the enamel text on the installation. The NFTA and Kappas are working on a date for Kappas and Iaviero to view the piece in storage, Kappas said. We think the best course of action is to let the artist determine how to proceed, NFTA spokesperson Kelly Kapteb said. From what I'm hearing, it does seem like the mural, is in pretty bad shape, but because public art is very important to us, we are going to try to work and see what we can do as far as restoring this work of art goes, she said. Kappas would like to see the mural, paid for by public and private funds, installed at UB. Kappas and Gonzalez graduate from UB, so there's a connection to the university in terms of growing development, a personal journey, Kappas said. It is a perfect location because it generates and provokes conversation, cultural perspective, diversity, and political policy. So it really hits on a lot of subject matters, and it's excellent for students when they pass by, see it. It provokes that conversation, who recently wrote a letter to UB President Satish Tripathi to consider the idea. After years without a public home, I believe the time has come to restore this work to the community, Kappas wrote. The Poetic Art Mural is more than an artistic installation. It represents a moment in Buffalo's history when Latino voices were invited to speak through public art. The university received the letter and reached out to the NFTA regarding the mural, but it's too soon to make any kind of determination, a UB spokesperson said. We understand that the mural is currently in NFTA storage and will likely require repair before any discussion of potential relocation could occur, said John Della Contrada, UB's Vice President for Communication and Marketing. An advocate and activist, Kappas found a monthly online publication called Buffalo Latino Village and co-founded the Shuttered Latin Gallery on Hudson Street in the 1970s as an artistic and cultural center located in the heart of Buffalo's Puerto Rican community. And you are listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Tuesday, February 3rd on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Lita and Nick.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Zero, or a smart speaker. Did you know?
I wasn't sure.
No, that's fine. Mobile device.
We could probably use it later, though, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have both that and the intro sheet out with me.
In any episode of our podcast, easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window, in the Apple App Store, or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of today's Buffalo News. Your readers are
Lita?
and Nick. And we begin with our city and region section. We begin with a story. Judge gives man 25 years to life for killing a 13-year-old. Miracle Hunt was a helpful big sister who loved to dance and get dressed up. The 13-year-old on her way into 8th grade had the smarts, talent, and confidence that made her mother proud on a daily basis. But Miracle's life ended on July of 2023 because of a gunman's single bullet fired as she and other young people were running away. The man convicted of pulling the trigger and shooting Miracle in the head learned his fate on Monday. Avante Aia, 23, was convicted in October of murder and gun possession. Was sentenced 25 years to life in prison for Miracle's murder. She was not the intended target of the gunfire, which was aimed at members of a rival group of young people outside an apartment complex. State Supreme Court Justice Deborah Givens said it was baffling to see the disregard Aia had for the young girl's life. It doesn't matter why you did it, Givens said. It only matters that you did it. About 24 onlookers, most of whom were supporters of Miracle's family, sat in the courtroom for Monday's sentencing. Many burst into a round of applause and yelled thank you after Givens issued Aia's state sentence. Miracle was shot near Broadway and Mortimer Street at about 12:30 a.m. July 7, 2023. Aia, also known as Tay, fired one shot from inside a stolen Ford EcoSport toward a group of young people, according to prosecutors. When Aia was charged with the killing in March of 2024, he was already in state prison serving a 3 to 3.5 year prison sentence for a separate case involving the possession of a gun about a week before Miracle's killing. In October, a jury convicted Aia of second-degree murder and second-degree criminal possession of a weapon. The verdict came after only about 90 minutes of deliberation. At his trial, prosecutors told the jury Aia jumped for joy over what he'd done in front of a witness after the shooting. Prosecutors argued that Aia faced a combined sentence of up to 40 years to life for his two convictions in this case. But Givens agreed with Aia's defense attorneys, Emily Trott and Michael Zosh, in ruling that she wasn't legally permitted to issue consecutive sentences. While the Court of Appeals has permitted consecutive sentences in cases where a person is convicted of both murder and gun possession, the possession of the firearm must have been shown to occur prior to the defendant forming an intent to commit the murder in order to be considered a separate act, Givens said. Assistant District Attorneys Justin Caldwell and James L. Harrington argued witness testimony showed Aia had the gun before the shooting, with a judge that her reading of the trial transcript showed that Aia only had the gun at the time of the shooting. Givens issued a 10-year prison sentence plus 5 years of post-release supervision for the gun conviction in order to be served concurrently with his sentence for murder. Marie Hunt, Miracle's mother, told the judge her daughter loved feeling beautiful and was full of joy, full of energy, and full of dreams. Losing her has broken something in me, Hunt said. She asked the judge to issue a sentence that reflects the value of her daughter's life and the pain they continue to endure. Aia has 4 prior misdemeanor convictions and 2 felony convictions, the latter of which are what already sent him to state prison. Before learning his sentence, Aia made a one-sentence statement in court. I just want to send my sincerest condolences to the family, he said. The judge said she took no pleasure in sentencing a young man to a prison term that could wind up being for the rest of his life. Miracle Hunt, however, does not have a life to look forward to, Givens said, because you took that away from her. You took that away from the people that loved and cherished her.
And young Democrats are eager to take on Congress's old guard. May Vang wouldn't be born for another 7 years when Bob Matsui was first elected to Congress in 1978. By the time Matsui died in 2005 and was replaced by his widow, Doris Matsui, Vang was still in college. Now a member of the Sacramento City Council, Vang 40 is mounting the first serious challenge that 81-year-old Matsui had faced since she began representing the area. Vang is among a nationwide cadre of young Democrats who are trying to oust some of their party's most stalwart figures in Washington, channeling angst that an aging generation of lawmakers is unable or unwilling to mount a bare-knuckles opposition to President Trump. I'm not waiting for permission, Vang said, because our communities are under attack and we need leaders in this moment that understand the day-to-day struggles of our working families, and I believe that I could be the leader in this moment. In Trump's first term, grassroots Democrats focused their ire on the Republican. But now, after President Joe Biden's reluctance to step aside in 2024 at age 81 helped pave the way for Trump's White House return, many see their party's own veterans as part of the problem. At a supporter's house near downtown Sacramento last month, Vang chatted with about 24 people, mostly young professionals, who cheered when she committed to dismantling U.S. immigration and custom enforcement. No more wash, rinse, and repeat, said Abby Morrissey, who works at the University of California, Davis, and attended Vang's event. We need to find young, engaged, energetic people that understand their young, engaged, and energetic populations. Matsui, who was born in a Japanese internment camp during World War II, said she found Trump's strict immigration policies and delivered billions of dollars for her district. Experience isn't about clinging to power, she said in a statement. It's about being effective when the stakes are highest for our families. Matsui ended 2025 with a financial advantage, reporting $785,000 in the bank compared with $2,000 for Vang. Evan Turnage had barely learned to walk when Representative Benny Thompson, a civil rights leader, was first elected to Congress from Mississippi. Now Thompson, 78, is one of the most senior black lawmakers on Capitol Hill, and Turnage, 33, is challenging him in the state's Democratic primary. Turnage, who is also black, is an antitrust lawyer who previously worked for top Senate Democrats in Washington, including Elizabeth Warren. Channeling Warren's economic populism, Turnage said Mississippi needs a representative who will fight back against what he sees as predatory corporations. We've got to finally secure civil rights and economic rights for the people of this state, Turnage said. Mr. Thompson has done a good job with being a part of the civil rights movement, but what about the economic rights? Turnage has struggled to raise significant money, which could make it hard for him to get his message out and overcome Thompson's incumbency advantage. He ended the year with just $54,000, while Thompson had $1.7 million in his campaign account. Thompson formerly chaired the House committee that investigated the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by a mob of Trump supporters. In responding to the launch of Turnage's campaign last month, Thompson said he is confident his record will speak for itself. Elections were created to give people the ability to make a choice, he said. I trust the voters of the district. Some level of generational change is already coming in the next Congress, no matter what. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, 85, of California, and her longtime deputy Marilyn Steny Hoyer, 86, are retiring from Congress when their current terms end. Thank you, Jesus. So are Representatives Jerry Nadler, 78, of New York, and Jan Schakowsky, 81, of Illinois. All had served for decades. But others want to stay. Representative Steve Cohen, 76, of Tennessee, is running for an 11th term, and he's up against Justin Pearson, who's 31, and is in a 6th grader promising better school lunches as president of the student government when Cohen was first elected in Congress. He later interned for Cohen. Pearson was one of 2 black Democrats expelled from the Tennessee legislature by Republicans after leading a gun control protest inside the state capitol building. He was quickly reinstated by local officials and later reelected. With all due respect to Steve, he's been in office for 43 years, and he's done the best that he can possibly do, and the status quo is still what it is. Pearson said, tallying up Cohen's time in the state legislature and in Congress. Democrats have held their party back by hanging around too long, he said, citing Biden, California Senator Dianne Feinstein, and Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The aging justice didn't resign while Barack Obama was president and died at age 87 during Trump's first term, allowing the Republican to replace her with a conservative. Time and time again, we are seeing people who are staying in position of power, who are good people, but are no longer doing it for the benefit of their constituencies, but for themselves, Pearson said. And that's wrong. And that's not fair to us or fair to our community. A polio survivor, Cohen had won nearly every election with more than 70% of the vote. He's already survived by a significant challenge by Willie Heverton, Memphis' first black mayor. And Cohen complimented Pearson's potential, but said age shouldn't be the criterion for judging a lawmaker. He said Pelosi, Hoyer, and Representative James Clyburn of South Carolina have done some of their best work after turning 70, as did the late Representative John Lewis of Georgia and Elijah Cummings of Maryland. He also said he's never been status quo, saying he was known as the liberal lion when he was a state senator. I've always been an iconoclast, Cohen said in an interview.
And we continue in the local news with nursing home residents who ask for bigger monthly allowance. Inside Harris Hill Nursing Facility in Lancaster, everyone knows Betty Ely. "How are you doing, Miss Betty?" an employee says to Ely on a Friday morning in January as she sits outside the room, a blessed sign affixed to her door. Ely has lived at Harris Hill for nearly 5 years and serves as resident council president, working to improve her fellow residents' quality of life. Her latest battle? Convincing New York State to increase the personal needs allowance for Medicaid-covered nursing home residents. That's a $50 a month allowance. It's all they have to spend on things like a haircut, clothing, a birthday card for a loved one, cell phone service, or maybe a favorite food or snack. The monthly personal needs allowance has not been increased since 1988, even as the cost of living and prices for consumer goods has skyrocketed, especially since 1988. Ely's message to state lawmakers is simple yet powerful. I would tell them to put themselves in our place. Advocates for years have been calling for an increase, arguing that the $50 monthly allowance no longer goes far enough and in turn affects residents' dignity and health. Adjusted for inflation, $50 in 1998 is roughly equivalent to $140 today. The allowance is set by state law, and any increase will occur through state budget negotiations, meaning these nursing home residents will have to make enough noise before April 1st to be heard over other powerful healthcare interests. They want things that make them them. What gives them their dignity, says Alyssa Yaks, who directs ombudsman services across 4 Western New York counties. They pay for haircuts. That adds up. Residents want to pay for their favorite cup of coffee. Ely says that until she can buy personal care items she prefers, such as a specific deodorant, body wash, and shampoo that soothes her sensitive skin, until. Nursing homes provide the basics, but typically buy bland hygiene products that could work for all residents. Could you really go 40 years when you were used to Crest, Colgate, and then you are getting a no-name brand to brush your teeth, which tastes horrible? Give them your life back, Ely said. If residents don't have enough to spend on things they want, a family member sometimes buys it for them, Ely said. But not every resident has family or regular visitors. According to federal law, all Medicaid-eligible nursing home residents must receive a personal needs allowance. In 1987, the minimum was set at $30 a month, but also allowed states to set a higher amount up to a maximum of $200. More than 30 states have set the allowance higher than $50, while one state, Alaska, is at the maximum of $200 a month. When a person transitions to long-term care, some are able to pay privately for a while, but many eventually deplete their resources and become eligible for Medicaid, which helps you pay for their nursing home care. Estimates suggest more than 70% of nursing home residents in New York are covered by Medicaid. While the resident goes on Medicaid, their Social Security benefit and other sources of income, with the exception of the $50 a month they're allowed to retain as a personal needs allowance, goes to the nursing home to contribute toward their cost of care, and then Medicaid pays the rest of the bill, explained Lindsay Heckler, managing attorney for policy at the Buffalo-based Center for Elder Law and Justice. While active bills in the Assembly and Senate are pushing for the maximum allowance of $200 a month, Heckler said resident advocates would like to see the personal needs allowance increase to around $140, which would be equivalent to the 1998 amount if adjusted for inflation. Why should their dollar not go as far as someone who's living in the community? Heckler said it's really an equity issue.
Mm-hmm. And you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service, and the time is 15 minutes past the hour. Flipping over to the sports, the Bills turn to Leonard as a defensive coordinator who can reconstruct a damaged defense. Before the architect of his defense was revealed, Joe Brady dropped a few hints about his vision for how the Buffalo Bills will try to keep offensive coordinators up at night in 2026. Nowadays, the best defenses and the best minds are continuing all the way through the play call, putting stress on coordinators, the new head coach said during his first press conference last Thursday at One Bills Drive. Unpredictability and versatility will be hallmarks of the Bills' defense with Brady in charge. He wants to see a wide array of personnel groups and pre-snap looks. Their opponent should not know where someone like Greg Rousseau will line up on any given play. The coach Brady chose to spearhead the schematic and philosophical shift, Jim Leonhard. Leonhard, a former Bills safety, left his job as the Denver Broncos pass game coordinator for the opportunity to reshape Buffalo's defense from the 4-3 or 4-2-5 nickel alignment used during Sean McDermott's 9 seasons. For the first time since 2016, the Bills-based defense will be a 3-4, with 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers. Once Leonhard's hiring became official, you may have wondered, how the heck are they going to make this work with McDermott's players? Do they have the money to add a bunch of new guys? Are they going to have to spend so much on defense that there won't be enough money left over to add help for Josh Allen and the offense? Defensive football has evolved over the years. In a 3-4 defense, an off-ball outside linebacker will occasionally move to the line of scrimmage to show a 4-man front and create more chaos at the line of scrimmage. The Bills will still use nickel personnel at times, based on the opponent and their tendencies. Leonhard can move both off-ball linebackers to the line to make a 5-man front. In the modern-day NFL, spacing with linemen matters more than numbers. In Denver, Leonhard saw the Broncos use wide spacing in their 3-4 to create quicker paths to the quarterback's back shoulder. Leonhard, like McDermott, will use disguised coverages and simulated pressures, but the change will allow the Bills to show more looks throughout a game. To answer your question and provide context, here are some facts about the hire, some notable roster questions to consider, and a breakdown of the assistant coaches who have been hired as of Monday morning. So why hire an inexperienced coordinator? Leonhard, who's 43, has never been a play caller in the NFL, but he's far from inexperienced. Multiple teams have tried to hire him over the years. A hip injury stemming from his playing days prevented him from accepting a role on Sean Payton's Broncos staff in 2023. Leonhard was an analyst for his former boss, Brett Bielema, at the University of Illinois. Baltimore Ravens and the LA Chargers are interviewed Leonhard for their defensive coordinator vacancies in recent weeks, and Leonhard's defenses at the University of Wisconsin were among the best in the country. From 2017 to 2022, the Badgers ranked first in total defense. They were second in first downs allowed, third down defense, and interception rate. Their pass and run defense were third and fourth overall, respectively. The Badgers should have hired the former Badgers safety as their full-time head coach, but instead they chose University of Cincinnati head coach Luke Fickell. For the past 2 seasons, Leonhard worked under Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, an experienced play caller who's known for his aggressive approach. In 2024, Leonhard coached the league's Defensive Player of the Year, cornerback Patrick Surtain II. And in 2025, the Broncos led the NFL with 68 sacks. They were also second in yards allowed, 7th in pass defense, and 2nd in run defense. Leonhard's secondary in Denver helped the Broncos force 5 takeaways during their 33-30 overtime win, don't remind me, over the Bills in the divisional round game last month. Jim's vision for what he wants from our defense and the personality they play with is the exact style of what I was looking for from a defensive coordinator, Brady said in a statement released by the team. You could tell how smart and versatile his secondary was when we watched them on tape. So who's helping Leonhard in Buffalo? To prepare edge rushers for different roles in a 3-4 defense, Leonhard hired Bobby April III as an outside linebacker coach. April studied under Rex Ryan, for whom he worked as linebackers coach with the Jets and the Bills from 2014 through 2016. April spent 5 seasons with Leonard at Wisconsin, where the assistant coach Andrew Van Ginkel and Zach Vaughn into effective NFL linebackers. Additionally, April was run game coordinator and helped construct one of the best run defenses in the country. April spent the last 3 seasons as the defensive coordinator. The Bills' inside linebackers will be coached by John Agarugo, who spent 4 seasons on McDermott's staff in Buffalo. Giants inside linebacker coach under Brian Daboll from 2022 through 2025. So where do the current players fit? The Bills have several players who should transition seamlessly into Leonard's defense. Ed Oliver and TJ Sanders, for example, could be the starting defensive ends, with Deion Walker as the nose tackle in the middle. Rousseau, Michael Hoyt, and Landon Jackson project in outside linebackers in a 3-4, though general manager Brandon Beane will bolster the pass rush through free agency and or the draft. Joey Bosa and AJ Epinesa are headed toward free agency. Another nose tackle is needed. The potential holes would exist regardless of the Bills' scheme. They need linebackers. Matt Milano, Shaq Thompson will become free agents next month. On the inside, Buffalo has Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, and Joe Andreessen. Competition will be added to the group. The Bills have Cole Bishop at safety, but they need to add another starter this offseason. Taylor Rapp is coming off a season-ending knee injury, and Jordan Poyer is a free agent. The Bills' top cornerbacks are Christian Benford, Maxwell Harrison, and if he's retained, Taron Johnson. Tre'Davious White is also a free agent. Linebacker, safety, and edge rusher will be near the top of Beane's shopping list. Depth is needed across the defense, specifically more players who fit specific archetypes needed for a 3-4 that shape shifts throughout a game. Techniques and philosophies will change, but there's enough talent in the secondary to fit with the way Leonard wants to play. Nick?
And the Olympics are starting on Friday, and the Olympic Village is ready for business. The Milan Olympic Village was coming alive on Sunday as athletes laden with gear rolled into a brand new complex where they will sleep, eat, meals, work out, and mix with other competitors for the next 3 weeks. Members of Team Canada were doing security with their suitcases from Canada's own Lululemon, and Team France, decked in their Le Coq Sportif uniforms, received a pep talk before ascending to their 6th-floor rooms. Dutch speed skater Judah Leerdam filmed a TikTok in front of the Olympic rings inside the village. The Milan Village, which will house 1,500 athletes and team members during the February 6th to 22nd Winter Games, was scheduled to be officially inaugurated Monday by International Olympic Committee President Kirsty Coventry. It has buzzing to life for days as athletes have moved in. Teams have decked out the room windows with national flags and symbols. Germany, Switzerland, Great Britain, Japan, South Korea, and the Netherlands, among others, are already making their presence known. China added a friendly panda, while Team USA hung a pair of 4-story tall banners featuring the stars and stripes. Athletes eat in the cavernous dining center run by Italian caterers offering a range of healthy local choices. Lunch on Sunday featured chicken, pork, and turkey, and a variety of fish, including 2 kinds of salmon and hake. Italian specialties like pasta can be dressed in red sauce or meat ragu. Pizza and focaccia were also an offer, as well as gluten-free options. Salad bars include legumes and nuts. The athletes' rooms were practical and equipped with the essentials. A single bed fit atop storage cubbies for suitcases and gear, while a standalone closet was stocked with a drying rack, pack of hangers, a laundry bag, a dry mop, and extension cord. In the era of electronics, the room itself was outfitted with another 4 outlets, one next to the bed, including 2 USB ports. The only design accent in the sample room on Sunday's tour were a sage green bedside table, bathroom shelf, and coat hook to match with painted concrete floor. One team was later seen bringing in mattress toppers from IKEA, while the Japanese team added futons. A full-length mirror hung outside the bathroom, which featured the usual shower, reported to have good water pressure, toilet and sink, plus the very Italian bidet, or low porcelain sink that complements toilet paper with a clean rinse. The fixture is de rigueur in Italian residences, but often perplexes visitors, including some athletes whose room videos have done double takes. On the floor for Team France, diagrams next to the elevator instructed athletes on which uniforms to wear alternatively for the opening ceremony, news conferences, the medal podium, the closing ceremony, and finally the trip home. The ceremony side of the Olympic journey in 5 diagrams. IOC partners have filled the village with activities for the athletes. Techno Gym has outfitted the gym with the latest equipment, including a Pilates machine. Powerade is backing a mind center where athletes can meditate, do yoga, or just talk to the trained volunteers. Coca-Cola has stacked a recreational area with foosball, air hockey, and a photo booth, as well as TV sets. A pair of Czech Republic athletes took advantage of the cosmetic brand Kiko's free 10-minute makeup sessions. The athletes arrived, they receive a free folding Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 7 special edition phone only for competitors, decorated with the Olympic laurels. Artificial intelligence is also entering one of the Olympics' favorite spaces, pin trading. Athletes can trade pins by putting one of their own into a plastic ball, then use AI powered by Chinese multinational Alibaba to instruct a robotic arm to randomly pick a new pin. The village, across from the Fondazione Prada exhibition complex, and an area attracting other luxury brand headquarters, will be an Olympic legacy to the city. After the Olympic and Paralympic Games, it will be turned into subsidized student dormitories, including communal kitchens, sorely needed in a city with 6 universities and squeezed for affordable housing. With the Milan Cortina Games the most spread out in history, Olympic officials also had to create space for athletes at 5 other venues. A temporary village has been built to house 1,100 athletes and officials in Cortina, while hotels and Alpine lodges have been adapted in Anterselva and Bormio, with each housing 400 participants and nearly 1,000 in Livignano. In Prazzado, more than 900 will be housed in a school for Italy's financial police that has been renovated for the Olympics and Paralympics. It will be returned to the police when the competitions are over, complete with 2 new pavilions.
And you are listening to a reading of features and articles from the Buffalo News, and the time is 28 minutes past the hour. Let's go to Dear Eric. Dear Eric, like many people, my weight yo-yos. Over the decades, I have joined many weight loss programs and got to my target weight on each, with 100 pounds being the most lost at one time. I stick to each program 99% of the time, finding the weekly weigh-ins to be very motivating. I've picked up good habits from each, exercising 5 to 6 times a week, greatly increasing my vegetable intake, etc. But I still overeat after my goal weight is reached, and I'm no longer participating in weekly public weigh-ins. I still weigh myself at home, but for some reason don't find it motivating to pare down my eating. Is there anything I can do to get the same weight loss reduction motivation without yet, again, paying for a program that is just basically a weekly public weigh-in? Signed, Want Inner Motivation. Dear Motivation, it sounds like you'd really benefit from an accountability buddy. Maybe it's someone who is also trying to change their eating or their relationship to their body, or maybe it's a friend or loved one who is simply in your corner and rooting for you. It may even be an online community, an established group, or a cohort you cultivate yourself. From what you've written, it seems that the habit of weighing in and then reporting back to others who know what your goals are is really motivating. It also sounds like these are processes that, crucially, involve clear expectations, but not shame. You can create the same dynamic by telling others what your goals are, what you expect of yourself, and asking them simply to witness your journey. They can cheer you on when you achieve a goal and can give you encouragement when you don't. Dear Eric, I get a holiday card from a family consisting of a mom, dad, and daughter. They also have a son that died in infancy several years ago. They still put his name on the card. I think this is a little weird. Your thoughts? Signed, Card Question. Dear Card Question, I don't think it's weird, but respectfully, it doesn't matter what I or you think about it at all. This is how this family is processing a profound loss. And while it wouldn't be some people's choice by putting their son's name on their holiday card, they are sharing a part of their lives and their emotional journey that's meaningful. I see this vulnerability as a gift. While it's perfectly fine to put a simple greeting on a holiday card or any card when we reach out to family and friends in this way, we're inviting them into our lives as those lives change and challenge us. I would guess that by putting their son's name on this card, they're inviting the recipients to see their full family as they see it, bonded not by life, but by love. Suffice it to say, their son is still their son and still important to them. It's fine if it's not to your taste. Perhaps don't put it on your fridge or mantle, but next year, try to see it as an invitation into their lives. You don't have to accept said invitation, but consider being grateful that they trust you enough to make the offer. Dear Eric, I'm deaf, having gradually lost my hearing and got a cochlear implant in December of 1994. I wanted to respond to Hearing Jokes, a person with hearing loss whose hearing impaired siblings staged an intervention because the letter writer didn't want to get a hearing aid. I would recommend that Hearing Jokes join the Association of Late Deafened Adults, or ALDA, and attend some meetings either in person or online. I also recommend joining the Hearing Loss Association of America, or HLAA, and attending meetings in person or online. Most of these members, by far the majority, do not identify as deaf, but work to find peace of mind first with themselves and then with others. It is a process to find ways to cope with hearing loss itself and to cope with the feelings of shame and negativity. These people can share their stories with hearing loss and help the letter writer to find a place of peace within. Signed, Community and Hope. Dear community, thank you for these great resources. Sometimes friends and loved ones don't do what they need to do to fix a problem, medical, emotional, psychological, or other. While it's important to support and sometimes coax them, it's also crucial to remember that everyone has autonomy. We can't be forced into doing what's right for us. What I appreciate about your suggestion is that they offer the letter writer tools to change his or her mind and to overcome the internal blocks that have impeded addressing and hearing losses in the first place. Nick.
And moving to a national story, multiple polls show that Trump is focusing on the wrong priorities. President Trump might be bragging about his administration's work on affordability, but recent polling suggests that Americans aren't buying it as they grow increasingly frustrated with his leadership. Many Americans say Trump is focusing on the wrong priorities, according to multiple surveys, including a January AP NORC poll, and they largely think Trump is neglecting the issue of costs at home. Compounding these problems, there are signs that frustration is rising over his approach to immigration, and some of his recent fixations, like taking over Greenland, are downright unpopular. This has created separate but unrelated problems for Trump as his party heads into a midterm year. Americans don't think he's paying enough attention to the economy, and many want him to focus less on immigration and foreign policy. But those are the issues that dominated the headlines over the past month, thanks to Trump's aggressive approach. Many don't see Trump helping costs and want him to focus more on the economy. Trump was reelected in large part because of economic concerns, but recent polling shows that the bulk of Americans aren't seeing benefits from his policies yet. And most don't think he's paying enough attention to the issue. A large share of registered voters see the economy as one of the top issues facing the country, and the recent New York Times poll found that about half of registered voters say Trump's policies have made life for most Americans less affordable. Similarly, about 7 in 10 registered voters in a new Fox News poll said Trump is not spending enough time focusing on the economy, including about half of Republicans. Meanwhile, about 4 in 10 voters in the Fox News poll said Trump's economic policies have hurt them personally. while about the same share said the policies haven't made a difference. Only about 2 in 10 say the president's economic path has benefited them. And looking ahead, 45% of voters say they will expect the economy to get worse in the next year. Even though many Americans continue to support Trump's goal of deporting people in the country illegally, polling shows that they're increasingly uncomfortable with his tactics. About 6 in 10 registered voters said ICE tactics have gone too far in the New York Times poll. The Fox News poll found a similar share of voters felt ICE was being too aggressive in its efforts to deport immigrants in the country illegally, a measure that's up 10% points from July. Those measures, which were conducted before the shooting of Alex Preddy by Border Patrol agents in Minneapolis, point to Americans' broad frustration with immigration officers' actions in cities across the U.S., even before the situation in Minnesota escalated further. Immigration was among Trump's strongest issues when he started his second term in AP and ORC polling, but it's since fallen. Just below 38% of U.S. adults approve of how Trump has handled immigration, down from 49% in March. That poll was conducted January 8th to 11th, shortly after the death of Renee Good, who was shot and killed by an ICE officer in Minneapolis. There's also some indication that Trump's approval on immigration could be slipping among Republicans. It fell from 88% in March to 76% in the January AP NORC poll, an apparent shift among his supporters during his first year back in office. In the past few weeks alone, Trump has mulled taking control of Greenland, pushed for U.S. control of Venezuelan oil, and penalized Iran for killing thousands of peaceful protesters. Polling shows that many Americans want Trump more focused on issues at home. About 4 in 10 voters want Trump less locked in on foreign policy, according to the Fox poll. Roughly 1/3 of Americans said Trump's time spent on foreign policy was about right. About 3 in 10 said he was not spending enough time on it. Control of Greenland is an unpopular issue for Trump. A recent Pew Research Center poll found that 6 in 10 U.S. adults strongly or somewhat opposed the U.S. taking over Greenland, as Trump has proposed. Republicans were split on the issue, about 4 in 10 favored a takeover, but about 1/3 were opposed. About 1/4 were uncertain. Trump has been a prominent political figure for about a decade, and his supporters have often not been deterred by his non-traditional or brash behavior in the White House. Polling has often shown that issue priorities have driven voters much more than candidate character. Despite that, there's a possible warning for the Trump in new Pew Research Center polling that shows that just over half of Republicans, that's 56%, support all or most of Trump's plans and policies, down from 67% just after he took office last year. The poll also found sharp declines in Republicans' confidence that Trump has the mental fitness to serve as president, respects the country's democratic values, or acts ethically in office. Only about 4 in 10 Republicans are now extremely or very confident in Trump acting ethically, down from 55% last year. Also concerning with Trump, given his focus on his predecessor's mental fitness, about 2/3 of Republicans are now highly confident that Trump has the mental fitness needed to do the job of president. That's down from 75% at the start of his second term.
And Trump plans to slash tariffs on Indian goods. Minister Narendra Modi agreed to stop buying Russian oil. The move comes after months of Trump pressing India to cut its reliance on cheap Russian crude. India has taken advantage of slacked Russian oil prices as much of the world has sought to isolate Moscow for its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February of 2022. Trump said that India would also start to reduce its import taxes on U.S. goods to zero and buy $500 billion worth of American products. This will help end the war in Ukraine, which is taking place right now with thousands of people dying each and every week, Trump said in a Truth Social post announcing the tariff reductions on India. Modi posted on X that he was delighted by the announced tariff reduction and that Trump's leadership is vital for global peace, stability, and prosperity. I look forward to working closely with him to take our partnership to unprecedented heights, Modi said. Trump has long had a warm relationship with Modi, only to find it complicated recently by Russia's war in Ukraine and trade disputes. Trump has struggled to make good on a campaign pledge to quickly end the Russian-Ukraine war and has been reluctant since his return to office to place pressure on Russia's President Vladimir Putin. He has simultaneously imposed tariffs without going through Congress to achieve his economic and foreign policy aims. The announcement of the agreement with India comes as his special envoy Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner are expected to hold another round of three-way talks with Russian and Ukrainian officials in Abu Dhabi later this week, aimed at finding an endgame to the war, according to a White House official who requested anonymity to describe the upcoming meeting. Trump has voiced that he believes that targeting Russia's oil revenue is the best way to get Moscow to end its nearly four-year war against Ukraine, a view that dovetails with his devotion to tariffs. In June, Trump announced the United States would impose a 25% tariff on goods from India after his administration felt the country had done too little to narrow its trade surplus with the U.S. and open up its markets to American goods. In August, Trump imposed additional import taxes of 25% on Indian products because of its purchases of Russian oil, putting the combined rate increase at 50%. Historically, India's relationship with Russia revolves more around defense than energy. Russia provides only a small fraction of India's oil, but the majority of its military hardware. But India, in the aftermath of the Russian invasion, used the moment to buy discounted Russian oil, allowing it to increase its energy supplies, while Russia looked to cut deals to boost its beleaguered economy and keep paying for its brutal war. The announced tariff reduction comes days after India and the European Union reached a free trade agreement that could affect as many as 2 billion people after nearly 2 decades of negotiations. That deal would enable free trade on almost all goods between the EU's 27 members and India, covering everything from textiles to medicines, and bringing down high import taxes for European wines and cars. The deal between two of the world's biggest markets came as Washington targets both the Asian powerhouse and the EU bloc with steep import tariffs, disrupting established trade flows and pushing major economies to seek alternate partnerships. In recent months, India has accelerated a push to finalize several trade agreements. It has signed a deal with Oman in December and concluded talks for a new deal with New Zealand. Trump seemed to hint at a positive call with Modi on Monday morning, posting to social media a picture of the two of them on a magazine cover. When the U.S. has been seeking greater market access and zero tariff on almost all its exports, India has expressed reservations on throwing open sectors such as agriculture and dairy, which employ a bulk of the country's population for livelihood, Indian officials said. The Census Bureau reported that the U.S. ran a $53.5 billion trade imbalance in goods with India during the first 11 months of last year, meaning it imported more than it exported. At a population exceeding 1.4 billion people, India is the world's most populous country and viewed by many governmental officials and business leaders as geopolitical and economic counterbalance in China.
And we move over to Italy. Fee goes into effect at Rome's famed Trevi Fountain. Tourists hoping to get close to the Trevi Fountain had to pay €2. That's $2.35 American. Starting Monday, as the city of Rome inaugurated a new fee structure to help raise money and control crowds at one of the world's most celebrated waterworks. The first tourist to pass through the new ticket check seemed nonplussed by the tariff, noting it was a small price to pay for quality access to a fountain made famous by Federico Fellini's movie La Dolce Vita. Before there were problems accessing the fountain, now there were a lot of people. Now it's very easy, said Ilhan Musba, a tourist from Morocco. You can take photos, you feel good, you're comfortable, and on top of that, €2 is not that much. The tourist fees were rolled out in conjunction with a new €5, nearly $6 tourist ticket fee for some city museums. In both cases, Rome residents are exempt from the fees, and the extra revenue will actually expand the number of city-run museums that are free for registered Roman residents. It's all part of the Eternal City's efforts to manage tourist flows in a particularly congested part of town, improve the experience, and offset the maintenance costs preserving all of Rome's cultural heritage. Officials estimate it could net the city $7.6 million extra dollars a year. The city decided to impose the Trevi Fountain fee after seeing positive results already from a year-long experiment to stagger and limit the number of visitors who can reach the front edge of the basin by imposing lines and pathways for entrance and exit. I think tourists were shocked by the fact that the city of Rome was only asking for €2 for a site of this level. Alessandro Ornato, Rome's assessor of tourism, said Monday, "I believe that if the Trevi Fountain were in New York, they would have charged at least $100. The fee follows a similar ticketing system at Rome's Pantheon Monument and more complicated tourist day tripper tax that the lagoon city of Venice imposed last year in a bid to ease over-tourism and make the city more livable for residents. The Italian fees still pale in comparison to the 45% price hike the French authorities announced for the Louvre Museum for most non-European visitors, where tickets now run to €32, that's $37, from €22. The Trevi fee, which can be paid in advance online, enables tourists to get close to the fountain during the prime daylight hours. The view from those admiring the late Baroque masterpiece from the piazza above remains free, as it is up close after hours. The towering fountain features the Titan god Oceanus, flanked by falls cascading down the travertine rocks into a shallow turquoise pool, where Marcello Mastroianni and Anita Ekberg famously took their nighttime dip in La Dolce Vita. Now bathing is prohibited nowadays. Legend has it that visitors who toss a coin over their shoulders and make a wish will return to Rome.
Okay. And just in case you are in this district, their voting polls are now open for State Senate 61st District seat. The special election to fill the State Senate seat for new Buffalo Mayor Sean Ryan will be decided today. Democrat Jeremy Zellner and Republican Dan Gagliardo are the two names on the ballot. Polls did open at 6 a.m. and they're open till 9 p.m. within the 61st District boundaries, which includes parts of the city of Buffalo and Tonawanda, the town of Amherst, Grand Island, and Tonawanda, and the villages of Kenmore and Williamsville. Voting details such as eligibility and assigning polling locations are available at the Erie County Board of Election website, or you can call 716-858-8891. Early voting already closed with 7,800 votes cast over 9 days, including almost 1,400 on the final day. Zellner has served as chair of the Erie County Democratic Committee since 2012, as well as commissioner for the County Board of Elections since 2017. As part of his plans to run for the state senate, Zellner resigned in January from his commissioner role, with Howard J. Johnson Jr. taking his place alongside Ralph Moore. Gagliardo, owns Diavello olive oil-fueled retail shops and restaurants in 4 area locations. He ran unsuccessfully for Amherst Town Supervisor in November, losing 53% to 47% to Sean Levin. The seat in the Albany became available when Ryan, who had secured his third 2-year term in the Senate by beating Christine Zarnik in November 2024 election, ran for and won Buffalo's mayoral race last year. The winner of Tuesday's special election will have an upper hand as the incumbent for the general election this November. Assemblyman Jonathan Rivera has already said he plans to challenge Zellner in a Democratic primary, and in the June election wins the special election.
And just some quick business news that broke this morning. I'm tossing this in there because I saw the bulletin. Disney names Josh D'Amaro as the next CEO. This is an article from the New York Times. We're tossing that in here because Again, this is where I saw it. Josh D'Amaro, a 28-year-old Disney veteran with vast theme park experience but little expertise in movies and television, will succeed Robert Iger as Disney's chief executive, ending a nearly 3-year search, the company said on Tuesday. Disney's board voted unanimously to give Mr. D'Amaro the job, who will assume power on March 18th, when Disney is scheduled to hold its annual shareholder meeting. He will also join the company's board. After Mr. D'Amaro, 54, takes control of the company, Mr. Iger, 74, will serve as senior advisory and board member until his retirement on December 31st, when his contract expires. At that point, he will leave Disney entirely, the company has said. Mr. D'Amaro most recently served as chairman of Disney Experiences, a division with $36 billion in annual revenue that includes theme parks, a fast-growing cruise line, and consumer products, including video games. Mr. D'Amaro's unit made up roughly 60% of Disney's profit last year. Disney, in some ways, has become more of a travel company than a media one. James P. Gorman, Disney's chairman, said in a statement that Mr. D'Amaro possessed the rare combination of inspiring leadership and innovation, a keen eye for strategic growth opportunities, and a deep passion for the Disney brand and its people, all of which make him the right person to take the helm. Disney also promoted Dana Walden to President and Chief Creative Officer effective March 18th. Ms. Walden, who's 61, has been Disney's top television executive, excluding ESPN, with joint oversight of streaming. Her remit, Disney said, will now include ensuring that storytelling and creative expression across every audience touchpoint and consistently reflect the brand. Ms. Walden will be the first company-wide chief creative officer in Disney's 103-year history. Mr. Iger noted in his statement that Ms. Walden commands tremendous respect from the creative community. She joined Disney in 2019 after the company's $71.3 billion acquisition of 21st Century Fox assets. She started her career as a Fox publicist, eventually rising to run the Fox Broadcast Network and associated television studio. Succession has been hanging over Disney since 2022, when Mr. Iger, having bungled the process in 2020, came out of retirement to retake the company's reins. This time around, an outsider, Mr. Gorman, a veteran Wall Street banker, managed the succession process. He was recruited to serve on the Disney board in 2024 as part of Mr. Iger's response to attacks from activist investors, one of whom, Nelson Peltz, harshly criticized the company for slipshod succession planning. Although the company considered outside candidates, the search came down to 4 internal leaders: Ms. Walden, Ellen Bergman, Disney's movie chief, Jim Pitaro, whose fief is ESPN, and Mr. D'Amaro. The question of whether any of them would ascend to the top job had captivated Hollywood, which long viewed Ms. Walden as the most viable candidate. Disney has a history of bumpy transfers of power. Iger's predecessor, when he first elevated to run the company, Michael Eisner, tried to cling to his job and in the end turned over a struggling company. During his earlier 15-year stint as Disney's chief executive, Iger delayed his retirement 4 times and seemed reluctant to leave when he did. The last time Iger stepped back, he quickly soured on his successor, Bob Chapek, who, like Mr. D'Amaro, ascended from the company's theme park division. The epic power struggle that followed between the two destabilized the company and ended with Iger's return to Disney.
And how about a little bit on this day in history? In 1870, the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, granting black American men the right to vote, was ratified. In 1913, the 16th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution provided for a federal income tax was ratified. Yeah, wonderful. In 1917, the United States broke off diplomatic relations with Germany. The same day, an American cargo ship, the SS Housatonic, was sunk by a U-boat off Britain after the crew was allowed to board lifeboats. In 1943, during World War II, the U.S. transport ship SS Dorchester, which was carrying troops to Greenland, sank after being hit by a German torpedo in the Labrador Sea. Only some 230 of the 900 aboard survived. In 1959, on a date which would become known as the Day of the Music Died, rock and roll stars Buddy Holly, Ritchie Valens, and J.P. the Big Bopper Richardson dies in a small plane crash near Clear Lake, Iowa. In 1966, the Soviet probe Luna 9 became the first man-made object to make a soft landing on the moon. And you have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Tuesday, February 3rd. We read the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, you can call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been Lita and Nick. Thanks for listening. Take care, and as always, keep smiling.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. Vision or have enough